Iran has been arresting Mossad agents and Mossad collaborators all over their country since this conflict between them and Israel began. And I think it's important that we discuss the real implications of what this possibly means. First of all, Israel would like everybody to believe that this attack on Iran was about the recent breakdown in negotiations regarding their nuclear weapons program. But from what we can see so far, that's bullshit. For example, Israel said they were going after military and nuclear facilities, but instead they detonated car bombs, killing civilians and targeting civilian infrastructure. We also know that Israel reportedly spent months, not days, smuggling in parts for drones that were rigged with explosives in suitcases, trucks, and shipping containers that were subsequently used to target civilian infrastructure and mostly kill civilians. You heard that time frame correctly, ladies and gentlemen. Months, not days, not weeks. They have been smuggling in these supplies for months. Oh, but it gets even deeper because Iran even discovered a drone manufacturing workshop right under their own roof. So with the information we have now available to us, that the United States was well aware of this attack from Israel, and the fact that Mossad agents have been embedded in Iran for at least months, but obviously for a lot longer, for them to set up the logistics and receive these drones, these bombs, these missiles, this technology in advance, it's time that we start asking some hard questions. The main question being, was this all just part of a long game regime change strategy by Israel and the United States? Because even though we've heard over and over again Trump continue to lambast Iran for not being willing to negotiate, we got to remember that the only reason that there's a necessity to renegotiate is because it was Trump himself who pulled the United States out of the JCPOA and then began sanctioning Iran without offering them an alternative. And of course, his excuse was it's because under the JCPOA, somehow Iran was still going to have the capability of making a nuclear weapon that they had never provided any proof that Iran was making. That was all the way back in 2018. And the US has been tap dancing and refusing to negotiate ever since then. The assassination of Soleimani on foreign soil, a man who obviously has nothing to do with nuclear weapons programs, but would be extremely important to take out if any regime change effort were to take place. Not to mention, Trump himself admitted that John Bolton was actively trying to conduct regime change in Iran. And he didn't necessarily critique the fact that he wanted to conduct regime change, he just critiqued his strategy. Fast forward, the United States and Israel helps to overthrow Syria. Israel immediately establishes bases in Syria, and the United States moves to formalize their occupation of Syria. So now, what would have been a strategic area of operation for the Iranian government can no longer be used because the United States, Israel, and its allies can intercept their missiles even in Syria with the full endorsement of this new dictator terrorist president that Israel helped put in. An endorsement that would have never happened. Support that would have never taken place under the Assad administration, which is probably why Israel was so quick to move in and establish military strongholds in the area the moment Assad was overthrown. And then we look at the fact that, yeah, Israel did attack some military officials and they did attack some scientists, even though these scientists have not been proven to be working on a nuclear weapon. But what about the 800 other civilian casualties? What about dropping bombs on a civilian television studio in Iran? What about the fact that Israel bombed Tehran's police headquarters, as if this is the only police headquarters in the entire world where their police officers double as rocket scientists? And then we bring it all back to the fact that the United States was only pretending to negotiate with Iran so that Iran would let their guard down so that Israel could carry out this attack. And the man responsible for doing so, Donald Trump, was also the man responsible for pulling the United States out of the JCPOA, sanctioning Iran, and effectively causing the necessity for negotiations to happen to begin with, because he ended the treaty that was already in place. Do the math, everybody. Israel and the United States have merely been biding time and placing their pieces on the chessboard to commit regime change. This was never about a nuclear weapons program. Placing Mossad agents and assets all over Iran months to years in advance, assassinating military leadership, taking out hundreds of civilians to create desperation and panic, taking out the capital's police headquarters so that they could not maintain order, quickly erecting military strongholds in a country that, in Syria, was once one of Israel's greatest adversaries, turned one of their greatest allies, and what can only be described as an elaborate terrorist cell placed in Iran months in advance that is literally carrying out terrorist attacks to destabilize the nation. Both Israel and the United States knew they could not go toe-to-toe with Iran on even ground. So it looks like they have been carrying out a years-long plan for regime change. It didn't matter if Iran created 0 nuclear weapons or 100 nuclear weapons. They were going to attack Iran, and they were going to attempt to overthrow their government.